Welcome to Heroes of Change this morning, and it's my pleasure to have on the call here today Ilja Grzeskowitz.
Good morning or good afternoon, as it's close to 8:30 here in Berlin, Europe. Chris, it's an honor to be on your show.
Really acknowledge your time today in sharing us with some of your stories and insights into the topic of change, which is pretty much your topic yourself as a global speaker.
Yeah. It is, and it has been the central theme of my whole life. When I was a student, I already moved 3 times. In my corporate career, I had to deal with change every single day. I was a store manager in retail in Germany's largest retail corporation, and we had changes from the outside. We had a lot of changes from the inside, and since I founded my own company in 2009, I'm dealing with change every single day with small organizations, global brands, with CEOs, entrepreneurs, and it's a topic that still fascinates me, and I'm really passionate about what change can do for your life.
Excellent. So if I was to say to you, Ilja, change your thinking, change your life, what thoughts come into your head around that phrase?
Well, there's a certain truth to that, but it's not enough. Of course, it all starts with the thoughts in our heads, because most of the times the thoughts we're thinking are not our own thoughts, but we adapt them from the media, from people we interact with. It's important that we start thinking our own thoughts, and it's the very first step for sustainable change. But if you don't combine the new thinking with massive action, then nothing will happen, because you cannot think yourself into change. You have to do something about it. But of course, changing your thinking is very, very important, because it's the very first step. I was working for IKEA back then. I was a store manager for IKEA, and I worked in a town called Hamburg, northern Germany. My family lived in Berlin, and I was basically on the road 4 or 5 days a week, traveling back and forth, over and over again. And I was kind of, from the outside, I was extremely successful. I got a very good salary. I drove a big car, and all the career doors were wide open for me. But on the inside, I was extremely unhappy. I was frustrated, because that was not the life that I had in mind for myself. And now I wasn't seeing my family, and my daughter was 2 years at the moment. And one day I was sitting in my car in a traffic jam, and I was frustrated again. And then I don't know where it came from, but it kind of like hit me. And the thought came into my mind: nobody's forcing you to continue that life. You can make a choice right here, right now, and start over again. And this is what I did. I grabbed my mobile phone, and I called my former boss and said, well, I'm quitting. I'm starting my own business. But I had to do that mindset shift first to get that idea. The choice I made 7-8 years ago to start that career in retail, it doesn't mean I have to be in retail as a store manager for the next 30-40 years, but I can do whatever I want in my life. It's all up to me. And this was kind of like a very liberating thought for me, and probably the best choice I've ever made. And I probably should have made it 3 or 4 years earlier.
I completely understand and empathize with that in the sense of a career change. I've been through that myself. And, it sounds logical to stay where you are. It's comfortable, safe, and you're paid well. But
yeah, absolutely.
You can be bored and extremely unhappy as well.
I always tell people, if you want to change something small, or something really significant in your life, look at your values. And very often there's a conflict between 2 values that are important for you, or you just have to change the values you want to have in your life. And this is not as easy as it sounds. 9 out of 10 people say freedom is my number one important value. And when you're looking at the actual behavior, they're doing everything, but not in comparison to that freedom value. So you always have to check, is the value in alignment with my behavior? But if it is, it's the strongest thing you can have when it comes to change.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's the filter by which we make our decisions. So what would you say, you maybe alluded to in this interview, what are, say, your top two values that you live by in your life, Ilya?
That is self-determination. This is so important for me. Second one is meaningfulness. Everything I do needs to have some kind of a meaning for me, but it's definitely family. Family is very, very important. Is even more important than business for me, and it's fun. Fun, especially in business. And everything I do, I always make a check: are these four values, are they in place when I do something? And if, of course, in the short run, it's perfectly okay if something is not that meaningful. I can do that for 2 or 3 weeks, but in the long run, I always need to have these four core values in place. And if not, I know I need to make a change, because if not, I'm going to be very, very unhappy. When you discover I have a value that's important for me, but my actual behavior says something different, you can either change the value and accept that it's not that important, or you can change your behavior according to that value. And of course, that takes time.
Are there any particular individuals that inspired you for having the courage to change?
To be honest, my two most important role models are 12 and 5 years old. They are my two daughters, because they are the perfect role models when it comes to change. They don't really think about consequences in a rational way. They do just what they want to do because it feels right. You were talking about my parents. They were the complete other way around. They're from a generation, they always taught me, be diligent in school, go to a well-known university and get yourself a job in a big corporation, and then you've made it. And change was not a key concept for them in their lives. And I don't blame them for that, because that's how they grew up.
Now, when we talk about procrastination, actually, what's the German for procrastination, just out of interest?
Oh, there's a really, really cool word in German for procrastination, and it's called Aufschieberitis. And I learned that very, very early in school. In all the classes I was interested in, I was a very good student, very good pupil. I was always good. The classes that didn't interest me at all, I was a horrible student, and I didn't do anything. I was procrastinating as hell. And until today, I'm not a big procrastinator when it comes to business, because I'm knowing why I'm doing it and for what I'm doing it, and that it's necessary. But there are some things in my life where I tend to procrastinate, and most of them have something to do with organization, office stuff, or maybe even some things in our garden. And I really don't like doing them. And what helps me is something like what I call my 2-minute rule. If there's something I know I need to do, and I usually would say, well, I do it later, or I'll do it tomorrow, I'll do it next week. If I know I can do it in the next 2 minutes, I'm doing it. Because I know if I'm not doing it in the next 2 minutes, I will probably never do it and start procrastinating. And that helps me a lot, because if you start developing that kind of habit, you do a lot of things just in the moment, and then they don't stack up, because procrastination gets really hard if you got hundreds of little things which you didn't finish or didn't even start, and then you're standing before that big wall and say, wow, I'm overwhelmed by my procrastination. So doing the things you can do when you can do it, that helps me a lot. And when I know why I'm doing something, and when I'm highly emotionally activated, I don't procrastinate at all.
What do you see ahead of you? Do you see a transition point ahead of you?
Change is never happening just for change's sake, but change is necessary when you grow, whether it's as a person or as a team or as a company. And change is just the catalyst for doing that. And I really like that growing.
And can I ask you about your wife, being a support person and being the mother of your kids? How do you manage that relationship?
That story I told you before, when I made the decision to quit my old job, my old well-paid job, and started over with nothing. You cannot imagine how many people came out of their holes and criticized me for doing so, and predicted your business will not work out, and whatever. And she was the only person who really supported me. And she said, if you really want to do it, then do it. And I will support you big time. And she understands me. And this is important. She accepts me exactly the way I am. And this is what I'm even more grateful for, because talking about change, when we try to change other people, it becomes always difficult, and she doesn't do that.
And just finally here today, could you give one piece of deep wisdom for those maybe who are resisting change or they're procrastinating?
There's a lot of uncertainty when people look into the future, and my piece of advice is always invest in yourself.
Thanks so much for your time, Ilja, and take care.
Yeah, Chris, yeah, have a great day.
Thank you. Bye for now.